Hey everybody, Richie here from Rocket Chronicles, and in this video we're going to talk about the current status of this Shapeshifter 75mm rocket kit that I'm currently assembling that I purchased from Wildman Rocketry. So its current status is it's ready to have its inside fin fillets put on. The fins are just tacked on at this point, so we're ready to do that. But let's talk about where I left off at the previous video where I was test fitting. And you can see all the details to that video up here. I'll put a card to that. So what I was doing is I was test fitting, and I found that the fins were miscut, that they didn't fit right. So at that point, I was kind of in a dilemma. How do I proceed with the rocket kit? And what I decided to do to get to this point is I just decided to go and build the rocket the way that I originally intended to build it. And that is to break away from the kit instructions, which recommend you tacking the fins in through the airframe, which I kind of did, but I didn't do it the way they want to do it. What I like to do is I like to build a fin, what I call a fin motor tube assembly. Some people call a fin can. I like to build that outside of the airframe and then insert it into. And the reason I do that is because I can get these fin fillets really, really good on the inside, just the way I want them, nice and beefy, and I don't have to reach inside the airframe. So the very first thing you have to do if you're going to do that is you have a tube that's pre-slotted because it was a kit. If you're scratch building it, obviously you're going to cut these slots yourself, but this was pre-slotted only down to a certain extent. And what I did was just took a Dremel tool. Here, I'll get down here and show. I just took a Dremel and just snapped them out of there with a little abrasive Dremel tool, abrasive wheel, I should say. And this allows you then to slide the whole assembly in and out. So I think everybody kind of knows what I'm talking about without me showing them, but I just wanted to show that in case there's somebody that maybe has never seen that technique before or something like that. So now let's go down here on the mat and we will look. Okay, I think I have my camera focused enough. What I want to show you is I have it tacked on, and this is the problem that I was having in the previous video. While test fitting, I had discovered that the back of the fin will set down on the airframe or on the motor tube. And when you have the airframe in place, this part of the fin sets up on the airframe, and it doesn't allow the front of the fin tab, the fore part of the fin tab, to sit down on the motor tube. And it's like this for all three fins. And I measured it in the previous video, and I got like a 53 thousandths at this end, and it goes down gradually, getting narrower to like 20 thousandths before it picks up. So when I tacked this on, and I was using ProSet 175/273 epoxy, it tacked on very well, but it left a gap, and I'm going to fill that in when I do the fillets. So let's look at what was the very first thing I did. The very first thing I did, because I decided to use a longer motor tube than the original motor tube. The original motor tube was 15 inches. I decided to go with a 32-inch motor tube in hopes of using some longer hardware, which meant I had to add more centering rings. So instead of having just 2 centering rings, I have 3, and this is actually the middle one. You can see here's the fins here, and here's the other end. Now this centering ring is not epoxied on. This is just taped on. And this one I decided to epoxy on using the ProSet 175/273 epoxy, which if you're familiar with that, a lot of people are familiar with it. They're used to seeing it in like an aqua color, and that's what's called QC green. This is the black, and it's the same exact epoxy. I'm going to talk later about the epoxy, and if this video is too long, I might just do a separate video because it is amazing epoxy. Although using the black, this is the first time I've used the black, and I've found some drawbacks that are actually kind of problematic in being able to see what you're doing. Where that QC green, I'm kind of thinking there might be a reason why there's that QC green. There's also a clear too. So anyway, what I did was I measured this to be, I squared it off from the end of the tube. I epoxied this in place and I got a 24-hour cure on it. And then what I did was I moved on to the airframe, and instead of using the fin guides, instead of using these fin guides that I had made, and I also had fin guides that I purchased, I decided to do what I've done in the past, and that is use the slots in the airframe as my fin guides. And again, nothing new. A lot of people do this all the time. So what I did was I mocked this thing up. I got this one epoxied on, and then I mocked this one up where it's just held in place. And of course, at the time, not all this tape is on here. I put another centering ring right here, and then I slid the whole thing into the airframe, and I also put a 54mm piece of hardware inside the aero pack and got that and slid everything in, because I want my centering ring back here to sit just in a perfect spot. And then I slid everything into the airframe, and I slid this back out. I took the centering ring off of here, and I tacked the fins in that way, letting the airframe actually be the fin guide, if that makes sense. And I did all three at the same time. Working with this epoxy is amazing because it has about a 22-minute, 18 to 22-minute pot life or working life before it starts to cure. But once you hit that 22-minute mark, this stuff doesn't move. And even before that, it doesn't really drip or move, because I put all these on in I think I timed it. It was like 7 minutes or something like that. And after they were all on, all I did was put a little bit of tape to the airframe just to hold them in place. But I just used blue tape, nothing serious. And then I stood the thing up vertically and left it for 24 hours. And there's no running. I have a little blob here, but that was there from the beginning. There's no running. And then after 24 hours, I had a nice solid cure, and I just slid the thing back out. But I will say that while I had it curing, I did put this centering ring on back here, and I also put the hardware back inside so that everything was together. So basically, while this was curing, to describe it in the right way, this had an airframe on here, this was curing, this was in place, because I wanted everything to be as precision as I could get it. And that's where I'm at right now. So at this point, I'm ready to proceed. I'm not going to do it on camera, but I'll show certainly after it's done. As far as the epoxy goes, I think this video is long enough, and I probably will do a separate video about the epoxy. So there you have it. I'll do a separate video about the epoxy. Hey, if you like this video, hit like, hit subscribe, come back, watch as I move through the build process of this rocket. Once I get through this process, the rest of it is probably going to go a little bit quicker because I'm already planning the electronics bay. I'm kind of in the process of that, but I'll do some video of that, how I make little templates and I lay everything out. Again, nothing revolutionary or, headline breaking. It's just all techniques that I use that I think a lot of other people use. But again, this is Rocket Chronicles. Maybe like 3 people watch this channel, I don't know, but it's just me making a chronicle of putting my rockets together and flying rockets and talking about rockets. So hit like, hit subscribe, come back. I'm harmless for the most part, and have a nice day, everybody. Thank you for watching.